Next to you. Chapter 2. I didn't know how to move on. I wanted to give up everything because I didn't want to feel that pressure anymore. I couldn't stand the essence of evil that wanted what I had. I tried to protect every ounce of what was mine. I wanted to bear that weight. But I didn't expect to bear a different weight. I had a different feeling back then. I knew this would happen. When I replicated a similar robot from an exo named Turfex, we knew what we were getting ourselves into. I knew the consequences. But I didn't expect it to eat me up inside after thunter died. When I saw his lights fade away, I felt like I failed. Everything about me was nothing but a failure. I can feel it, play back in my head, on repeat like a nightmare.
My battery is low, and it is getting dark.
The robot said, slowly losing power, as he held him close and was sobbing. I know, Thunter. Everything will be okay, he said, grinning his teeth, sobbing while looking down at his dying robot.
I'll be seeing you.
It said, smiling, looking up at him. The robot was glitching out as it spoke his last words.
Thanks for staying with me.
It said, as its light slowly went dark. After hours later of getting his robot back to the facility, he puts the robot in the back storage room and covers a big white sheet over it. He walks looking down and goes into the workroom and sits down next to his workbench. He sits there, thinking. He didn't know what to do or even know how to process. He was out of his mind. The loss of his robot felt like losing a best friend. Even though what he created was a machine, the loss felt more real. The more he thought about it, the more he soaks up in tears. He uncontrollably threw everything off his desk as everything clashed on the ground. He just couldn't control his emotions anymore. He shouts, "I'm so stupid!" Netro said. "I'm useless!" he said, sobbing. "I'm a failure!" he said, while smashing up everything in his work office. The more he got mad, the more he broke down, as he softly crawled up onto the ground and just cries. For about an hour, he just lays there, motionless. No sense of feeling whatsoever. Every amount of anger and frustration was numbness now. "I'm so sorry, Thunter. I promised you things that I could not keep. I'm such an idiot," Netro kept telling himself, as he was mourning and grieving, guilty of the situation, completely shattering his own light. "I wish I could go back, so I don't feel this pain of guilt and failure," he said, shattering his own image, his own self. Then Netro looks at an unfinished robot that was on the display, and he got up. He took a very good look at the robot, and he then looked at a bat. He went to grab it, and wind it up, and was about to hit the unfinished robot.
Everything will be okay.
It said. Netro was in utter shock. He paused and just stood there. He dropped the bat as it fell out of his hand. He noticed that he had not worked on this one for a while because he didn't think he needed to. But seeing that it powered on by itself, it surprised him. How was it possible for this robot to be on? He hasn't programmed it yet. Its speaking made him wonder if he had been on this entire time, hearing and listening to him having his mental breakdown. Had he worked on this one before but just hasn't put it out? He was very confused and was questioning himself. Tears in his eyes. If there is anything I could give you, it's to be shut down. I'm not responsible enough, he said, as he sees the control panel and turns off the robot, as he then walks away from his office. But then, when he reaches the door,
Next to you.
it said, and Netro was now shocked by those words. Don't do this to me, Netro said, shouting. He didn't want to believe this was happening, that this was in his mind making him go crazy, since he was grieving and was mentally not okay. Tell me this isn't real, please. I'm living in the mind of my own grief, he said, pleading that it was all in his head. But then, Netro took a look at his ID. 2374 robot? Netro said, as it reminded him of the same ID that his mask friend has. He was wondering why such a familiar of numbers would just show up on the robot's tag. This doesn't make any sense. ID 2374 robot, Netro said, and the robot completely turned on. It made Netro jump. He took a good look at the robot and was astonished at how well it received the response to its ID number. As Netro backed away, the robot tried to move, but its joints weren't constructed yet. As Netro then stopped it from moving. Hey, don't worry. I'm by your side, Netro said, wiping the tears off his cheek. I'm sorry for trying to shut you off. I'm guessing that was your way of saying no, wasn't it? Netro said, chuckling. Don't worry. I won't. Not anymore. And when you're made, I'll be right next to you, Netro said as he laughed. Aren't you a weird one? I backed away and it looked as if you wanted to be next to me, Netro said. If that's what you want, then when I fully create you, you'll be able to be next to anyone. Neyxtou. Yeah, that's it. Neyxtou. Since you like to be next to me, I'll call you Neyxtou. Sounds catchy, doesn't it? Netro said, as he hugs the robot and cries on him. He found a reason to keep going, even after the mental breakdown he just had. He laughed and cried at the same time, as he finally understood what thunter meant when he said, I'll be seeing you. It wasn't in the form of another robot. It was in the art form of keeping what he made alive. Netro couldn't really understand that in a split second of time, an overturn happened. Should he feel blessed, grateful, or lucky? But in the end, he was pleased that he was going to put his all into this robot, put all his effort into Neyxtou, now that he was the number one priority. I'm scared, Neyxtou. I don't want to lose you too, Netro said, as he hugged the unfinished robot tightly. So, just hang in there. Just hang in there until I get myself together. And then, I'll be able to fully finish you, Netro said, as Neyxtou made a noise like a robotic squeezing chirping sound. Like a bird, as Netro laughed. Okay, I won't take long, Netro said. Netro left the workplace and made sure Neyxtou was kept in a safe place. But when he left the facility, he felt a sense of structure like he couldn't leave him by himself. So he went back, got the unfinished robot, and took him to his apartment. He put the robot down in the dining room after he cleared out his table and just threw it out. Look, you're very important to me now. Leaving you there isn't an option. You're not a work project. You're my art project that will soon come to light, Netro said, making sure the robot was steady enough to be left alone. Netro lays on his bed, looking up at the ceiling. He had so many questions that he wishes he had answers to. but decided to not overthink and just let the water ride the wave.